The way I want to do this is everyone who comes on stage gets a brief introduction, so please let us know who you are. And then we start asking questions. I'll ask the first question, but not go into the quorum, but just to warm us up. And then we take questions from the audience. The online audience is also welcome to ask questions. Obviously, they can't come on stage, so we skip that process there. So maybe go left to right. Charlie, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Charlie Hull. I'm also known as the Search Juggler. I've been doing this for 25 years, successfully pretending to be a search expert. So yeah, and I've just finished a 5-month contract at Moonpig in the UK, working on search for greetings cards. So yeah, that's me.
Cheers, Charlie. My name's Shaun. I'm a product manager with my search team for a industrial supplies e-commerce company. I've been doing it for 5-6 years now, so please be kind. And Trey?
Awesome. I'm Trey Grainger. Since we're in school, I brought something up here to cheat with. In case I get a hard question, I'm the lead author of the AI-powered search book. And this November, with Doug Turnbull, one of my co-authors, we're going to be doing an online search training course for about a month. If anybody's interested, come chat with me afterwards. But I've been in search for almost 20 years, written a few books, and done a lot of interesting things.
All right. So my warm-up question is, and as you all have different perspectives, each of you has one, where are we with vector search? Has it become a commodity? Is everyone doing it? What are your thoughts on this? And we ask everyone in the group.
So certainly not everyone is doing it. I think one forgets that amidst all the buzz around AI techniques such as vector search, on the ground, when you go to companies operating in the real world, I think they're still very cautious with vector search. They don't quite trust it, they don't quite know how to do it, they may not have the people or the resources to actually practically engage with it. So I see a lot of prototypes, early implementations, out-of-the-box implementations, and they've had a first go, but then they're not really sure about it, so they might be blending it with their lexical search and kind of pushing the vector search results down here, because again, they're not sure they work yet. So I see people doing it. Do I see a lot of people doing it properly yet? I'm not sure. I think there's still a long way to go before people figure out how to effectively use vector search in production in a lot of cases, especially as a lot of cases they're still trying to figure out how to do plain old keyword search. All right.
Over to Shaun.
Yeah, I mean, I could just say ditto, being from like client side. We are running a vector search system just for empty search retrieval, kind of a last stab at trying to get something into the system for the customer. Sometimes it works pretty well, and other times we don't like to do it because we have a lot of specific part numbers or numeric searches and things like that. It just goes bananas. So, or product IDs, it's just, I mean, what's similar to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC, not the thing the customer's expecting, right? So we have to be cautious. I echo Charlie's thoughts there. Run a lot of split testing, tease it into the system, don't give it to your really important key accounts, but maybe give it to a different customer base that's a little bit more forgiving, if that's such a thing. Measure it, split test it, try. Also, don't spend too much money, right, on something that you might not end up using. So I think Doug talked a few years ago about dig a small hole, get into production, yeah, fine, but don't spend 8, 9, 10 months on something that your boss is going to say, so all your guys have been doing this for 10 months, and so what's going on? And you're like, well, this query's kind of cool. Okay, you're fired. And that's the harsh reality of being on the client side. You're investing money in smart people, new processes, and you're asking the business to take a punt on something that is cutting edge and incredibly cool. And everyone in this room agrees that this might be a way forward. But this comes at a cost. And that cost is not just the money or the salaries, but the cost of not doing the thing you were originally doing. Maybe you could invest in your UX. Maybe you should do something else at the same time if you've got a limited group of people like we've got. So it all comes at a balance, and that kind of risk and reward that you have in a lot of industries. We're not alone in this. So yeah, balance wisely, I would say. And that's where we're at.
Cool. Trey?
Yeah, definitely agree. Most of the folks I've come across, even companies with really smart engineers and some search people, tend to use some off-the-shelf embedding model, throw it in, run searches, realize they lose some of the benefit of lexical in terms of exact token matching. They do some sort of naive hybrid approach, and there's just all these missed rooms for optimization in terms of the models they're using. If it's just a semantic model and it doesn't, do something like with shout out to Superlinked over here, where they're doing the mixture of different types of representations together, or if you're using some other techniques to be able to more intelligently combine kind of a sparse vector and sparse vector and dense vector approach. I think there's just a lot of things you can do to drastically improve the quality of your search, leveraging dense embeddings, and most people just don't understand those techniques, and therefore they get a lot of money and time invested for some results, but often I think they determine it's not necessarily worth the investment with the current state. It is if you know what you're doing, though.
Thank you. So, question from the audience. No need to be afraid. Great.
Thanks. What do you think are the state-of-the-art ways of measuring search as you type? And this is kind of a different question from, let's say, BM25-based lexical search or even vector search, because for usually search as you type, or what we call also suggestions, you have, let's say, only 4 or 5 positions somewhere under the text box. So I don't see a lot of traction on carrying that small part of the search UX into the AI world. How do you see that developing?
Whoever wants to go first?
I'll start. In the AI-powered search book, we've got a section on doing autocomplete, leveraging embeddings and semantic capabilities that might be worth checking out, just in terms of a different way to do it that's not just bigrams or what have you. I've implemented a lot of autocomplete that is not trying to just autocomplete the thing that's being typed, but trying to autocomplete the entire query. So sort of as you type, identifying parts of the query, realizing, okay, this phrase is a phrase, I'm now going to continue on with the next thing, but I'm going to interpret it in the context of the rest of the query that's already been autocompleted. So there's a lot you can do. If you think of autocomplete as just one step in query interpretation, you can either take in an entire query and then try to parse it and interpret it, or you take in the query as the user's typing it and you're parsing it and interpreting it. Most of the same techniques apply on both sides, but if you can do it up front and show the user the intelligence within your system and how you're interpreting it, then you can go a long way towards driving them towards a better search leveraging AI. So I think it's really, autocomplete is really, really critical, and I think that most of the AI techniques can be integrated. You just have to be very intentional about how you do it.
I think there's 2 aspects to that question. One is, how do you measure how well your autosuggest autocomplete is working? If you have 5 suggestions, for example, are people clicking on the top one? Are they clicking on any of them? Is it working? Is it doing something useful? Can you improve it? So that's, and we probably know how to do that. We can record clicks on different things. We can see how much people engage with it. I think the other aspect, for me, autocomplete, autosuggest is a way of basically shortcutting someone's search journey, and I think that's really important. You don't have to go to the full list of results, scroll, find something, click on it, whatever. You can just go, yes, that's what I want. And for a lot of very high volume queries, it's a great way to just shortcut the entire process. So that's another aspect of measurement, is how much is it changing user behavior and saving them time and maybe getting them a quicker route to some kind of completion, some kind of, add to basket or document download, whatever our success is. So I think that's also important. How do you measure how much it's impacting the overall user behavior? So I think those are the two aspects. I'm not sure I'm quite answering your question, so what's the state of the art? But I think those are two useful things to consider.
Ditto. Certainly on the time saving, so I also suggest surfaces not only suggestions but also product as you type. For some customers who are searching for exact or partial part numbers, they can surface a product in the auto-suggest and shop. That's the time-saving aspect for customers who, in the B2B world that I'm in, they're not paid to be on my shop, they're paid to do their job. And they tell us time and time again, you speak to customers, and I can't echo it enough, speak to your customers all the time. They tell you what you need to do, more or less. And they say, Shaun, I don't want to be on your site. Thanks very much. But the harsh reality is they've got a job to do, whatever engineering job they're doing, they need to be doing that, not hanging out on my beautiful looking auto-suggest. So yeah, time saving, measure that. And that's a customer benefit that goes beyond a search nerd metric that all of us might know. And it's something you can translate to the higher ups in your business to say, I'm helping customers save time and get the job done. And I think you don't need to be a data scientist, a data engineer, a software developer to understand that. That's something that your boss can understand and relate to you immediately. And then you become a value center. I was talking to David earlier about profit centers. We might be leveraging money and adding products into the cart, but we're valuable to customers, and that's time saving is valuable to them, and you can put a euro or pound sign on that for them also. Slightly trickier to measure. You have to speak to them, and there's that kind of qualitative data that also backs up your quantitative data later also.
Thank you. Could you please come on stage? Please do. Yes, a round of applause for our first new fish. Shaun, could you leave the stage? All right. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Aditya, Addy for short. I've been doing search since 2008-ish. I built a search engine on binary search trees back when I was a little boy. I don't like to, but so been doing search, mostly Lucene, more recently Vespa, evaluated it quite to some depth. And
what's your current role? Sorry.
I'm a staff engineer at TomTom.
Okay.
And I do search.
Right, thank you. Our next question is from the online audience. What are the right problems, metrics, and data sets for evaluating the quality of search for AI agents? And I'm looking at your faces. I know that might not be the right question for this group.
It was what metrics and data sets?
So I'm going to reread the question. What are the right problems, metrics, and data sets for evaluating the quality of search for AI agents?
Who wants to start? You want me to start?
Yeah, actually,
it's
not. The perverse thing is my team aren't actually handling on another part of the team are, which I'm a little bit disgruntled about. So they're trialing a chatbot on the product page to surface a little bit more detail about the products that customers might be interested in. So it's kind of search has done its job, it's got the customer to the PDP. Okay, chatbot, can you tell me something that I can't see necessarily directly on the page, or I don't want to read the 500 lines of technical specification about the most boring part in the world. So evaluating that. Previously, we had a human-based live chat where you could ask questions, and maybe somebody behind that portal would quickly be looking up somewhere the answer to that question. That was the basis for evaluation against the bot. Do our experts in our domain, could that be translated to something automated? We've heard that already today. And could you actually keep your coverage, then more online rather than just when your humans are awake and active? So that's what they've been doing so far, is evaluating a whole bunch of questions and chat logs that we've got over the last 3 or 4 years, firing those against the robot and seeing where are we on this scale? Is it, again, are we brave enough, stupid enough, to put this in front of enough customers who are going to ask us deeply technical questions about parts that, if they buy the slightly wrong size thing, will break their, very expensive German branded car manufacturing plant. No one wants that on their conscience, right? So that's where we're at, trying to relate the robot to what a human would do with kind of chat logs.
All right, I'll take it next. So a chat interface is very different than traditional search results coming back. The same general techniques in terms of how you solve problems apply. What I'll say is, in terms of evals, what I've found to be the best is to think of the system holistically. So most companies I see fall in one of two camps when they're implementing agents, let's say chatbots. One is they either say, I want it to answer any question under the sun by default, and then I'm going to layer in intelligence on top of that. So this is, you go to your airline, you say, hey, I want to book a flight, and then you start to ask it questions about, hey, what's the leaked plot to Avengers Doomsday? And it just starts telling you, making up all kinds of crazy stuff because it doesn't have guardrails to limit it to only the thing it's supposed to be talking about. The opposite, I see companies saying, hey, I only want it to do things I explicitly give it permission to answer, in which case it's very, very limited, and then you build up. Either way you go, you're going to have different kinds of problems you're trying to address. But what I've found is that if you start by logging the request that comes in, log the response, obviously, and then each step along the way, assuming you've got an agentic framework and multiple flows, each step and decision point, you want to log that as well. Because at the end of the day, what you really want to find is where the problem breaks down. If you don't get the right answer out, at what step did you first encounter a problem? Then you take human annotators. We can talk about LLMs doing that later, but you get somebody who's a domain expert to annotate this was wrong, and then you go through the steps and you figure out where the problem was. And what you start to do at that step is, after you see 10 or 20 or 30 different responses, you start to see patterns, right? Then you need to tag and classify those patterns in your eval data set coming in so that you can find the patterns, and then you start fixing that. Again, whether you're starting from I'm only going to allow the chatbot to do what I tell it, you're starting from it can do everything and I want to limit it, you ultimately need to be able to identify specifically where things failed and categorize those things and continue on. The same tried and true processes of having somebody rate and grade not just the final result but the intermediate results to the point where it failed that's the way you solve engineering problems, right? You dig in, you find the point of failure, you then address that, and then you continue on to the next points of failure. In terms of data sets, most companies I've dealt with, it's their domain, it's their data, it's their questions. There's no public data set you can download for that. It's literally just roll your sleeves up, understand what the problem is that your company wants you to build and that your customers need, and then just go through the hard work of refining it and doing the engineering it takes.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts, Adi?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree with Trey and you, because So I think the question was also about agentic, right? So agentic is basically, how I see it, is that the agent, the written agent is actually the human control over a bunch of tools, one of them being an LLM or multiple of those being LLMs and then search engines and whatever, right? So the agent is doing the tool calling, and then this agent itself is somewhat, at a higher level of abstraction, is a set of rules. Right, so it's an algorithm, it's a flowchart, ultimately. And then all those evaluation techniques which we do for just one-shot search, whatever, they get transformed into now evaluating one answer, right? How instead of a bunch of things like a bunch of results and then calculating NDCG or ERR or whatever, this transforms into evaluating one thing. But then again, as you say, you can bring in human judges of that thing. But again, the actual problems and the actual improvements will come from analyzing those patterns when you aggregate them and then again break them down into which tool was the wrong one that was called, or whatever the LLM recommended to the agent to call this or that tool, and then that turned out to be the wrong decision. So all of that is typical engineering practice where you log things and console, hello, I'm here, number 1, hello, I'm here, number 2.
Okay, thank you. There was a question over here.
So I was in San Francisco last week at the AI conference, and you might be surprised to know that it was agents everywhere. And some of the conversation I had was around like personalization of this agent experience. And I got to use this Hello Kitty microwave example many times. So first of all, credit to credit where credit's due. Trey, thank you for the nice example. So my question is, given that people are coming from the AI space, are kind of trying to reinvent everything from scratch in some sense, like you have this kind of memory for agents and so on. How can we propagate this kind of knowledge that we already have in the search domain back there so that people are not really reinventing the wheel?
Thank you.
So my brain is still on. I was at the AI conference last week, and there were agents everywhere, and I was talking. And I was like, I literally was picturing you walking around talking to agents all throughout the conference. But okay, I got it. So I think reinvention sounds like a bad thing, and it can be if you're wasting time and effort, but often when people come to a space with like a brand new mind and not knowing how things were solved before, they end up coming to weird solutions, but sometimes those weird solutions are actually incredibly insightful and helpful. So I think in the case of agentic workflows, for example, looking at RAG, so we started with naive RAG, which is just, hey, let's just go, query for results and give them to the LLM to stop hallucinations. But then a bunch of engineers who didn't really know search just decided they were going to roll their sleeves up and start building lots of kind of recursive workflows, right? To take results, judge them and see if they're good, and if not, just go run another search and just like put it in a loop of try and try again until you actually get some results that are useful. And you might say, well, part of the reason the results weren't useful is because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to run a good search. Yeah, but guess what? 2 minutes later, after lots of cycles and searches, they have some really good results that are better than anything I could engineer as an expert search engineer who's been doing this for 20 years. Like, they're going to find the results by just trial and error over and over and over. And now we can optimize that. But the key insight there is, hey, don't do one pass with one pipeline to try to find some search results where you've optimized the one thing. Allow for some trial and error and allow for some, decision-making and choice by the LLMs in there. And that came from outside of the information retrieval world and then was brought to us. And now, day and night, I'm seeing people implementing, and I'm implementing these patterns that were externalized from the search engine and now pulling them back in. So I think for innovation, it's actually good that there's some people starting with fresh eyes, tackling some of these problems, especially now with LLMs that can kind of allow you to cheat and just, solve the problem for you if you let it. But for clients I work with, I see inefficiencies everywhere, and I can make money off of that by showing them how to do it better. So I can speak out of both sides of my mouth here.
Yeah, cool. Any further thoughts from?
So, like the agentic framework, we might, talk about, like so much reinvention going on or whatever, trying to bring the search problem out of the search engine and trying to solve it outside. Is it the right approach or whatever? But as Trey said, right, the iterative thing of the nature of it, making it recursive, brings out something that is, at least, it feels like emergent behavior, right? So you make and this is kind of even recursively true of how we build search systems, right? So we break a search system, and then you have these patterns like make the candidate retriever, make it dumb, make it fast, then break the problem into query understanding, re-ranking, whatever, right? So this is, again, breaking that problem down. And you can say that we are still, even inside search, we are reinventing stuff, right? We just saw Top K, and there's Turbo Puffer, right? They're doing, who would have thought like 5 years ago, search directly on top of S3. But you can call that reinventing the wheel, but I like the new wheel, right?
Very cool. Any thoughts, Shaun?
No.
Fine. All right. So could you please come on stage? And I think we let Shaun off the hook. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
I'm Fernando. I'm the CTO at Zeta Alpha. We're a startup based in Amsterdam.
Thank you. So, any questions? There's two.
Hi. What I'm gathering and what I kind of gathered from the first question is there's still a lot of issues around, I guess, the trust with vector-based searches, because I guess a lot of the time there's this black boxy kind of feeling to it, like you get this query, you get this output, it's a bunch of floats being compared against each other. And my question is, I guess, what are some ways that we can introduce some confidence in returns from vectors, vector search or hybrid searches, in the same way that we can kind of prove that confidence for our search results in a lexical situation? Are there any conceptual implementations? Are there any ways you've seen already that we can kind of verify and improve confidence in vector or even hybrid searches?
Thank you.
Maybe I can take this. So I think, the way I see it, also the company is like, we kind of look at it in a holistic point of view, right? So like vector search is one of the tools that you can use for bringing relevant results to whatever solution you are building. So in the case of, agentic workflows, you can pretty much use any combination of techniques, and then somehow at the end, either provide the reference of the evidence back to the answer, or also use other techniques like LLM as a judge to be able to understand whether something is relevant or not. But I think like these days, what this, as you were mentioning before, this kind of agentic or like deep search technology is very good at just iterating as many times as possible, and then until you find the right kind of chunk for your whatever use case you're having. So I think for me, like being able to provide or like to make sure that the answer is good or if you have quality, there are many aspects, right? So one aspect is like just look at it from the holistic point of view. Let's say like you build the system, you present it to the users are happy. That's one signal, and then there's another signal which is kind of internal during the retrieval that you can ask these kind of powerful models to evaluate whether what they are finding is correct or not.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so indeed, trust in the vector output can become a problem if you are not having the right approach to adding guardrails, right? So this is not only about starting out with the, a preset notion of guardrails, but to actually, as we said before, like, you analyze the problems, you actually look at, I don't know if you've seen the Big Short, right? And then Dr. Berry actually looks at the bloody data, right? In the Excel sheets. But that does bring out patterns that lead to, in my experience, that lead to guardrails that let the agent, for example, reject this answer from the vector DB, right? And so this is that's one level of optimizing this. But then you also have fine-tuning techniques that you do on your vectorization model, on your embedding model, that you can do here. And then ultimately it's all based on that you have a sound eval strategy. Also at the agentic level, you can mitigate this with rudimentary techniques like majority voting between your what the lexical engine gave and what your what your vector database gave. Or you can also even, this can lead to, the guardrails whole conversation can lead to using vectors in a different way than you have used it in the past, right? So for example, Cohere gives you a retrieval model for, just candidate retrieval. And that's, of course, that's hallucination at scale, right? And then, but if you say, the typical search architecture that the candidate retriever just does something fast and maybe dirty, and then you restrict this to the top, let's say, if you can make a fast re-ranking embedding-based model, and now by the nature of this architecture, you're putting guardrails around it. It can't hallucinate, right? It can only hallucinate ranks. So that's a much smaller space of hallucination that you have to handle then.
Any thoughts, Trey?
So the question was, what can you do to better trust vectors? And I would say don't. If you have an inverted index, it's probably unlikely that your index structure is text with a bunch of words. You probably have a title, you probably have some other metadata, dates, numbers, whatever. You've engineered that index to represent your data and represent your problem. If you take a bunch of text and pass it to an encoder and get a bunch of vectors out, and you're not engineering it to represent your domain, your data, like first of all, is the encoder that you're using, is that model fine-tuned to your data? If it's not, then okay, well, there's opportunity for optimization there. Are you modeling in the vectors, or are you just leveraging that one semantic space? Because that's comparable to just having one keyword field with everything put into it. So there's with anything, it's garbage in, garbage out. With dense vectors out of the box, you tend to have a lot more false positives than you would have with lexical search, with keyword search. So you have to know these things and understand that it's one tool, one way of modeling data that allows you to get at certain types of insights, i.e. being able to take in natural language queries and search, or to be able to have a little bit of sort of abstract, I don't want to call it problem solving, but sort of relationship of relating of concepts. But I wouldn't say you should trust vectors, just like I wouldn't say you should trust an inverted index. If your inverted index has garbage, then you shouldn't trust it. Or if it's missing fields or missing IDs, you shouldn't trust it. So it's really, at the end of the day, an engineering problem. One thing I will say, and actually just thought something I could talk about for a lightning talk today, your inverted index is a language model. It's not a transformer, and it's not using attention in that way, but it's all of your data from your domain put into a language model that can be used to derive insights, to derive alternate vectors and things like that in a sparse space. And in fact, it's a perfectly fine-tuned model. It's perfectly fine-tuned to your data, and you can leverage it in such a way. If you're using a dense vector model that's not, then you've got some loss of understanding there. But yeah, dense vectors and queries on them are great tools. Inverted index is a great tool, but it's a tool you have to do the data and the modeling and understanding of the domain yourself. So don't trust it unless you build it in such a way that you can.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add, we had a lovely, great talk here at MISIS in June about a similar question from the folks from Algolia, and I think one of the authors is there, and one of the speakers, Marie. So basically this was about AI engineers trying to become better, yeah? so that you can trust us, and we become better and better, versus from the UX perspective, we want to tell the user when we don't know, yeah? So when the model might fail, give them an indication. And I think the outcome, my learning was, there has to be a compromise between the two sides. And I think this mixture of honesty and combining or improving the quality, that's the path for building trust in my perspective. We'd have more questions, but we're also almost on time, so I think we can't do another round here. So I want to finish and thank everyone who stepped up and became a fish on stage, right? So thanks a lot.